Being an American citizen, I would never, ever want to be held accountable for that of what the US government has decided to push through. And so, with that, it's been very disheartening to watch our reaction here in Europe over the last 6 months to Russian nationals who I believe pretty much look at things the same way. They are not supportive of the government. They do not know what they can do. And for a number of them, after the 24th of February, they felt that they had only one other option, and that is to leave their country. Larisa Melnikova, who is a Russian activist currently located in Tbilisi, and I really didn't know what to expect from this interview, and it's left a deep impression, not necessarily exclusively tied to her situation or the plight of the other 20,000 Russians that are currently in Tbilisi. Don't even talk about other countries of the world. But there was one word that's been going through my mind since this interview took place, and the word is selflessness. I felt that Larisa was so selfless, so humble, and with that, I was completely inspired by everything that she had to say, and having the opportunity to talk to her left a very deep impression. And I hope that all of you will find the talk that we had is equally as insightful. So join us.
Yeah, hi to everyone. So my name is Larisa Melnikova. I'm like a citizen of Russia, staying in Georgia right now. So like when the war started, we had to leave the country. So now we are in Georgia. Thanks to the Georgian government for letting us stay, and we created a foundation here to help Ukrainian refugees. So we do a lot of informational assistance. So we tell people how they can reduce their risks crossing the borders, like showing documents, what they should sign, what they should not sign, and also with living in Tbilisi, so how to get new documents. Do they actually need these documents to, for example, to go further to Europe or to another country when their friends, relatives are staying right now? And we also opened like a shelter, so a safe place for refugees to stay for a month or a month and a half, just to finish all the tasks they have about documents, to have a rest, to have psychological help, and to plan their further living. So most of them want to go back to Ukraine, like as soon as they just will be able to. But like no one knows how much time they will spend in Georgia or in other countries, because like in April we all thought that the war would finish like much faster than actually we can see, and no one have any proven forecasts, like any trustful forecasts about this damn war. So it's very painful for us to write like every month post about the war is like with us for 5 months, for 6 months, and like every time you want to believe that it's last time you actually do that, but unfortunately it's still in progress.
Yeah, I think we're all in agreement that this war is not going to end very soon. And of course, it makes it very difficult to keep up the motivation with everyone who has been exiled. Just out of curiosity, roughly how many expatriates do we have, Russian expatriates living in Georgia right now or in Tbilisi?
So there are a few like estimations. So I think that there are probably about like 20,000 of Russians. Yeah.
Wow, 20,000.
Yes.
That is a huge
So
community,
you can just
especially.
walk on the Tbilisi street and you hear Russian speaking. So you have a lot of Russian people around, and even if you go somewhere out of Tbilisi, I don't know, Batumi, Borjomi, Kutaisi, so a lot of Russians everywhere. And so some locals told me that they feel that, like, this feeling of changing the nation, changing the nation mix, like in the city. So yeah, they are trying to like remember or to learn some Russian now because they need to do some business, like restaurant, taxi, all that stuff. And most of them, like they learned Russian in school, like, or in their childhood, like, I mean, like middle-aged or older, like persons, not the young guys. So young guys usually speak English, and it's also fine for us.
Right. Just out of when I think about all of that of what's taken place in the Russian Federation over the last 15, 20 years, let's go back to 2008 when we had the
Yeah.
incursions in Russia, in Georgia, which obviously has to have some sort of effect in your situation as well. I can imagine that there were various moments where you probably thought, should I stay or should I? Would
Mhm.
Were there any times prior to the end of February where you thought, actually, it's time for me to go, and you decided to stay longer?
Yeah, I was preparing, actually to move abroad, and I wanted to do that even before the pandemic. Then we had pandemic, then it was a bit difficult. So like, I got my vaccination. You cannot get like Pfizer or Moderna in Russia, so you can get only Sputnik, and with Sputnik, you cannot go almost anywhere. So like, yeah, I have 2 flights to Serbia just to get my Pfizer. Yeah, in November, and then started to travel again in January. So yeah, like went to Europe first time for a few years, and then returned to Russia. And within a month, actually, yeah, the war started. So yeah,
Mm.
I was planning this. However, I didn't plan it like to be so fast and so like in a very messy way. So when I bought the tickets, I had only 3 days just to collect all my clothes, to close all the stuff you need to close, like. So, for example, I went to my family. I like lived in Moscow last years in Russia, and my family lives in St. Petersburg. So, like, there were no fast trains, so all tickets are sold, no planes. So I spent night in the train on way to St. Petersburg, and then night to go back. And then I spent most like part of the day with my horse, saying bye bye. So I'm a horse rider, and it's like I miss my guy very much. So I also say
Mm.
bye bye to my friends, but it's easier because like friends can fly to you, and horse not. Yeah, and then like actually I had only one night to pack all my things, and I had 54 kilogram of luggage with me. Yes. Yeah, and I left the country with the last international Aeroflot flight
Wow.
to Yerevan. Yeah, yeah, and I bought like the last place on this plane. So actually, it was impossible to buy a big suitcase. I had one, like smaller one. I bought another one from some guys, just peer to peer, like a market of used things. So just the morning before my flight, and there was no chance to buy another suitcase. So I just took a curtain from the bathroom. I rented flat, so it was not my flat, like rented one. So just took the curtain, put all my clothes, just tie it, and said, it's my second piece of luggage. Because they did not allow me to board like third place for luggage, like third spot and fourth spot. I was ready to pay, but like, uh, yeah, there was no way.
And it worked. So that was the most important thing. Uh, Concerning the situation, you mentioned right in the beginning that everyone was hoping that it would be a short stay in Tbilisi, and now it's become more of a prolonged stay. And in fact, now looking at the situation, it looks as if this war will be going for a while. It's a war of attrition, it appears. Have you noticed among your colleagues, your compatriots, whether they are, what kind of effect it has had, to what degree have you noticed that the morale has sunk between
Mhm.
the beginning and now? Maybe if you could talk a little bit about that situation.
Yeah, for sure. Like, for me, it was much easier because, like, at first I understood since the first day that it's not for a month or for a week. So even if the war like would be short, the effect would be much longer. And like me and a lot of other guys who took their part in, I don't know, demonstrations, meetings, anti-war activities. Like I worked for Over the Info. It's organizations that help. That helps actually those who were arrested during the protests, and like there is a lot of pressure right now, so like it's not a good idea to go back even if you want just to meet like your, I don't know, friends and parents and then go back to somewhere. So each of us may be arrested, and like I was like, no, I was understanding that, like even at this moment when I was leaving the country. And most other guys, they thought it would be shorter, and all this immigration, it would be much easier for them. So there was a survey made by Mitya Leshkovsky. He's pretty famous, like in NGO sector in Russia. So. He found out that half of Russians left the country had not enough money to survive for even for 3 months. So like, and for most Russians, it's pretty difficult to earn money outside. So most Russians do not speak English pretty well. They have non-convertible professions. Like, for example, if you were a teacher, like not a IT guy, basically, not in digital, not, I don't know, like some international companies, in your past. So your chances to get a job pretty low. And here, like in Georgia, it's fine to speak Russian because like most locals here speak Russian, but like average salary here is like about $300, and it's not enough to rent. Yeah, maybe a room, maybe you can rent a room with this money, but not even a small flat. And you also need eat, you need transportation, you need like medicine and all that stuff. So like you can imagine, it's probably not a good idea. So, and even these type of jobs, they are pretty rare because like there are a lot of refugees from Abkhazia, Ossetia, all these occupied territories. Yeah. So like for the first weeks, the morale was like the lowest, I think. So I lived in old city, like where a lot of expat bars, so like people started to open expat bars like a few years ago. So guys from Kazakhstan, Belarus, like Russia. So all these guys who were pushed away like few years before. So, and you can go to any of these bars and people were depressed, drunk, again depressed. There were some like drunk people on the street, so you need to like see where you put your leg actually. So it was just awful, but then it became a bit better because the most depressive guys, they mostly were guys without money and without like any perspective. So they returned to Russia without like any will to go back to Russia. They just had no another options, so they needed food and like like a roof above their head. So then mostly people mostly started to be like better, like in terms of mental state. It's still difficult. It's still very difficult for most people to live here, especially for those who travel not so much, who who is not ready with the culture. So I visited Georgia a few times even before the war. So like I know the region pretty much, and I knew what to expect. And like actually. when I just started to visit the stables, I realized that like there is a lack of trainers. So they suggested me to become a trainer, and like I'm not ready to do that like professionally because I'm a sportsman, not trainer actually. Yeah, but just for fun, I like worked for some time with just newbies, like people who don't know almost anything, and it was funny, but like too much downshifting, I think, for me. Yeah. So I still work with horses here, but not with like people. And the understanding that like you can earn here like anyway makes life easier. Yeah. And also a lot of people are stuck because if you have children, it's amazingly difficult to live here. So now it's easier to open a bank account. I don't know, but like to get permission of like long time staying with like some like right to get a job, normal job, and all that stuff, like medicine, like healthcare, access to healthcare. It's extremely difficult for Russians. So like it's a moment when you're happy because like you're pretty young and healthy. So like uh, so I think it's fine for me, but not for most other people.
What are generally the demographics from the 20,000? I didn't even think about people that families would come over, but of course it makes sense. We would automatically make the assumption that everybody was young and healthy, and could be a very wrong assumption. Maybe if you can give us an idea of what kind of age ranges you have from the 20,000 that are currently to be found within Tbilisi.
Here, most people are, I think, between 20, maybe 22, 23, 25 to 35, 40. So it's like the vast majority. So mostly it's like it's this part of population that travels pretty much, that speaks at least understand as English, so they can watch movies, they can talk, they have some understanding of how the world actually may look like, not like this Russian nightmare. So it's why they're here. So there's another kind of like another type of immigrants, those who were scared of being caught and sent to army, like to military, so like it's a war, so they could ask people just to go to army, to military bases, like so some people were hiding here. But they mostly go back home, so like yeah.
You might have seen this in the news that came out yesterday, I believe, that Putin is planning to increase the number of soldiers to be within the military up to 137,000 by next year. So with
It's
that,
not so much. Actually, you need to understand the model, how this army stuff works in Russia. So if you live in Moscow and St. Petersburg, any big city, you don't care about this. Like you may want to be a military guy, like maybe it's your dream and then you go there. But like most soldiers and officers, they are from regions like far away from big cities. So you can live in a small town and your salary, if you find a job actually, and it's not an easy task, so will be, I don't know, $100, $200, 300, nothing. And you need to feed your family with this money. And if you go like to the army, they will pay you much more, 2, 3, 4, 5 times more. And actually it's much easier job, so you won't need like to stay in the field like for agriculture, I don't know, work on construction site. So it's like sitting at the at the room, like at the military, like some base. So it's pretty fine for them, and they did not think about there is a possibility to go to war actually. So all these guys, they were looking only for money, because like this government, like Russian government, current one, uh, they just don't do anything to support the regions, to bring there some salaries, some new jobs, all that stuff. So, and when Putin talks about increasing the number of soldiers, it's mostly about these regional guys, because you cannot hire people in Moscow. Like, it's not a good salary for them. And like, if there is a choice, people don't want to go to army. Definitely.
And it's very interesting if you were to compare that to the situation in the United States. It's the same story, because it was always the poorer people who ended up in the military because they had no other options. So maybe the United States and Russia have more in common than people realize.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think in a lot of respects. You mentioned a situation when right after the war broke out, and now we're looking at the current dilemma 6 months after. Inevitably, when you're in a situation where everybody needs help, you figure out ways to help each other. It's called mutual aid. Have you seen any changes in the way that mutual aid takes place within the 20,000, I'm going to call you refugees,
Yeah.
within Tbilisi? Have you seen how that mutual aid has changed over the last 6 months? Has it become maybe a little bit more official, or maybe there's more strict routines? Maybe if you could elaborate, I think that would be quite interesting.
So if we are talking about Russians,
Yes.
so there is like mostly some entertainment kind, forms of mutual like help. So there are a lot of teams right now. So people just make a team of like volleyball, trekking, going somewhere. So some activities just to get involved, to see new people, because like if you just sit in your flat and read all this news, like it just drives crazy. So yeah, it's like that, mostly like that. What about like some financial help? I haven't heard about that. So like sometimes if like I know someone who is on the like edge of decision, if I stay here without money or I go to Russia, in order to survive. So I usually think how we can help, like not with money, but with, I don't know, providing some coach, some sleeping space, something like that. Maybe like some advice, what to do, what work like you can take, whom to write about, maybe remote work, something like that. So most people coming here, they got used to taxation system. When your company you work for do all this taxation, so you don't need to send any declaration, any nothing. So you just see these numbers on your like salary cards, like and here people face the obligation of paying taxes by themselves, like calculating taxes, like going into this taxation law. And like now, last weeks, I really spent a lot of time just describing people how this process like is actually yeah, it's supposed to be, like how to do all this stuff. So because I was entrepreneur like in Russia for a few years, like when I was really young, and then I have a few stations when I need to like to do my declarations and all that stuff. So I just know how like you should do this kind of routine. And like people sometimes help with tasks like that, no more. So mostly Russians are trying to help Ukrainians because it's a way how you can feel better. So we cannot stop war, we cannot stop Putin. So it's why there are a lot of, I don't know, hundreds of volunteers, like crowds of volunteers cleaning some city lakes, parks, doing some activities, some picnics, in, I don't know, some sport events. So everything for Ukrainians, just to be useful, to show our support. And like yesterday, I think yesterday, no, 2 days ago, it was Independence Day of Ukraine, and we celebrated it in Tbilisi. So there was a huge demonstration, concert, all that stuff. And actually, I think about half of people who were there were Russians. And there is this thing, I think you can, it may be interesting for you. So there was an event. I missed it, and I still sorry, for myself for missing it. In April, when I was in Batumi, another city in Georgia, they burned a doll of Putin. On the fireplace. Yeah, and that's like, it's also like, it helps people to understand that they are in a normal country right now. So they actually, when you see a policeman next to you on the demonstrations, policemen are here just to help you, to see that you won't be hurt, like no cars around, and they're not going to arrest you, to beat you, to hit you. And it's like, just like, I don't even know how to call these feelings, because you just cannot believe in that.
No, thank you very much for sharing that, because that I could never imagine what it's like for you. That's not possible. But I can empathize what it is like after a period of time where things went very quick. You needed to move quickly. You needed to get out, and now 6 months have passed, and of course you had a thought about your home country before you left. Now 6 months have gone. That has to have an effect on the way that you look at the place you came from. Maybe if you could talk a little bit about your feelings after 6 months.
There is no surprise for me. Russia is like that. It was like that to the citizens, to the opposition for many years. So last year, last year, I think no one could say that there will be a war. Like, I could not imagine it, like, by myself. Yeah. And I thought that it's pretty clear that the situation is extremely bad. And I actually found a few spots how I can leave the country illegally, just to run away, in case there will be some, like police will have any questions for me, or there will be some personal pressure, or they close the border, So I spotted a few places in different parts of the country, like, to have a choice, actually. Yeah. And then I even checked one of these spots, like on a horse. I just walked along the border just to see if I can cross it, if it's difficult or not. So I really thought about taking 2 horses, like they're pretty cheap in this region, and like sit on one and put my luggage on another one and just go, to another country, and then go to the police and say, so I'm sorry, like, I'm a refugee. Yeah. So like, this way there is no surprise for me, we had a crazy story with my friend. So we were just like, he had a car and I was a passenger, and we wanted to drink coffee. So we just decided to went to some coffee place. So just driving, nothing like strange. And then there are a lot of police cars around us, like just shouting, like, stop, go out of the car. And like, actually my friend, he decided to leave the car, and they just caught him, just pushed like to the ground, and it was scary. And I said, oh no, I prefer to sit here, like, I don't go anywhere. And they just come to the window and just take me out of the window. And then they checked documents. Yeah. And I think that, like, on this moment I was in a base, already was in a base actually. So they just hit me a few times, just why not, they thought, I think. And after that, you live for a few weeks with bruises on your face, and after that you have no fantasy about good Russia and good country, good government. So it's pretty normal. And when people decided to leave country in March, they were so much surprised. So, oh, you can be interviewed, interrogated on the border. Dear guys, we had that for years. So if they had interrogated you before, it doesn't mean that there is no such practice. So last half of a year didn't change anything about the image of Russia in my mind, just because it was extremely bad there, then, and still like that now. So and I think it's true for many Russians.
Okay. Of course, that leads me to the point of saying, let's assume that the war is ended tomorrow. It's not, I can't imagine it being that easy for 20,000 to just go back, because you cannot ignore what took place during the last 6 months, and regardless of whatever the conditions are, the war comes to an end. There are still going to be repercussions. How are your feelings about the polarization within the Russian society, from those people who stayed, those people who left, those people who would be getting a different type of message over the last 6 months? How do you see that turning out?
Honestly, even if the war, if war would stop just tomorrow, I'd be happy, because there will be no death, so just peace. But for most people I know here, in Georgia now, I mean Russians, we won't go back anyway, just because it's dangerous for us. So Putin is still here, even without war. Even if someone, I don't know, kill Putin. So there was a joke about hitting to his head, and could someone do it, please? Like that. It was like a meme in the internet, in the Instagram. So other people who will come, they're the same. So it's his company, his friends, his servants. So for us, nothing would change actually. And polarization, yeah, there is a polarization, but it's pretty much hidden. So I think that there are about 20% of Russians who believe that Putin is right, and they believe in propaganda, in this crazy stuff they've heard from TV, and they can say it loudly, because they will be pleased by the government, by the, I don't know, the employer, all the stuff. And there are probably 20% that are against the war, and they stay quiet because they want to survive. Most people cannot leave the country, because to leave the country you need to have money, you need to have language, you need to have ability to do so. So if you have older parents and there are no relatives who can care about them, you cannot leave, because older people usually refuse to leave any in any condition, just it's pretty difficult. If you have some, I don't know, disability, illness, so you need a lot of health care, you cannot leave because it's extremely expensive when you're not citizen, so you should stay. If your profession, if you're a teacher of, I don't know, literature, Russian literature in Russian school, how can you earn outside? Especially if you have children. So there is no way. So we feel privileged that we were able to leave Russia. So, and those who are still there, they stay quiet, and I understand that. I understand why. So, and the vast majority, they probably have some like I don't know, unclear point of view. So they not agree, not disagree. We are not in politics. We prefer to stay outside. Let's just survive. We need to do a lot of, I don't know, gathering, like gardening, to have more like tomatoes in the jars for the winter, because it's like extremely expensive to buy normal tomatoes in winter, not green one from the greenhouse. So like, yeah, they do that, and it's vast majority of people. So Russia is extremely poor country. People usually think that like all the countries like Moscow. Nope. According to surveys, third part of Russians, like 40 to 50 millions, they have the like toilet, like bathroom outside of the house in this wooden small building without heating, without any like pipes, just like a hole in the ground. And you can imagine Russian climate. So sometimes in the winter you probably need to dig some time, you just to go to the toilet and not get frozen in the process. Third part of Russians.
Well, and of course, if we think about the disparity that you mentioned between those that live in Moscow and St. Petersburg and those that are coming outside, I could imagine that there would be some sort of resentment, especially from those soldiers that felt that this was the only option they had to support their family, and that you would probably even be more of an enemy for them.
Yeah, so like my family lives in St. Petersburg, and like I used to live in Moscow. And when I travel within the country, I usually say that I'm from St. Petersburg, not mention Moscow, because there is some tension. So like you're like these too rich, these selfish guys who take all the money from the country. Actually, it's not true even for all the people in Moscow, because most people in Moscow, like, it's kind of hard to meet ends, like, to earn enough to rent a flat, because like the prices are extremely high. But for all the other country living like, I don't know, in poorest country in the world, it looks like a miracle for sure. So, and it's actually why, like, when I saw these stories about like Russian soldiers taking some, I don't know, washing machines from the houses of Ukrainian guys, it's actually why they probably don't have washing machine in their house, like even working for the military with nice salary, because it's not enough. And like we have refugees in the shelter. Like yesterday I was there, like spent most time there, and we were talking, and they asked me, so how actually people live, like like they had, like in Ukraine, all these bombed house, like both cities, they had pretty nice healthcare and all that stuff. And I told them the story, like a few years ago, I fell from a horse, like it was pretty bad fell. So I was like unconscious, like pain, shock, all that stuff. And they took me, like the emergency took me, and we went to the next hospital. It's just 80 kilometers from Moscow. 80 kilometers, not much, right? There was no MRT, like no tomograph, no KT, and only X-ray station, like, and it was 6 years older than me. So it's Soviet from the beginning of 80s. Like it looked like, I don't know, some industrial stuff machine. Yeah. So it was probably pretty dangerous to my health, because like I'm not sure about the dose I got from this machine. And actually they were not able to understand that I have like some damage to my like bones. I spent there a few days, then they let me like go. I went to the city and actually did like MRI, and saw that like actually I needed to weigh much more. Yeah, so it's 80 kilometers from Moscow. So,
Wow.
like, it's not such a surprise.
No, it's not. I would imagine that you have enough relatives still in Russia today, right?
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Yeah,
I'm
how
planning
is
to
it?
take them one by one. Uh-huh.
Oh, no, sorry, go ahead, please.
So, like, I hope I will be able to take them outside, like abroad. However, I need some time to understand where I can make the documents. So I need some legal base to do that, because you cannot take all your family and say them. So it's rented flat. Let's live here as a tourists. You know,
Mm.
like it's not that safe and that's right. But actually, I'm lucky because all my family supports my point of view. So there are some distant relatives that don't do that, but like all the core family, like people I'm attached and the people that are close to me, they support me, and I feel pretty happy because of that. So they would like to leave the country, so it's mostly a question of like money and legal issues right now. So even if like we sell their like property in Russia, it's almost like impossible to leave the country with money right now, for example. So you cannot send them because SWIFT doesn't work. You cannot take them like in cash because there are strict and very low limitation, like you know.
I could imagine there would be enough of the 20,000 in Tbilisi that would not have the same situation as you, that maybe there might be some conflicts between the people that are there in Tbilisi and those that stayed behind. What kind of stories do you hear there?
There is even a movie, amazing story, like made by Lashak. He's a director, movie director, and he made a movie speaking, like interviewing different parts of the family. So these who are against war, and they like the ones who are like for war, like you know, pro that and all that stuff. So. Here I have a friend, for example, and his mother, she serves some government organization, not a military one, but still like pretty close to these police systems and all that stuff. And he just decided not to speak with her because every time he tried to do that, she started to push him like, what are you doing? I will be fired. You know, all you do is just, you know, it's problems for us, like you know, like just stop doing that, like be a normal son. And it's pretty common. It's pretty
Okay.
common.
Hmm. Again, the 6 months, and we know this will go on for a while still. How are these people actually coping with that situation? Because there is a huge divide between their family that are still in Russia. You're all located in a place that's foreign. Regardless of how long you stay, it will still be foreign. How do they deal with that mentally?
Like it depends on the person. So a lot of people I know went to psychologists and you know have like regular sessions because it's pretty difficult to survive without them. So just to speak about all this stuff going in the head. So some people are a bit better, especially IT guys, because they are sure that like there will be a place for them in any country, and you know they are more than welcomed even with Russian passport. Like for now, I think all the people who could not survive like in this foreign atmosphere, like another country, so they have already left, I think, like return to Russia or maybe go somewhere else, just trying to find some place that you know, better fit for them. However, I think that Georgia is amazingly welcoming, and people do not show any aggression. So actually people here understand that most Russians they see, like in Tbilisi or in Georgia now, like they are against war and they are normal ones. So like that's totally fine. I know that a lot of Russians are in Turkey now, so it's also pretty easy to stay there, like due to some legal regime, like very light one, and like there is a huge community of Russians. So some people prefer to live within this community. I don't think that it's good, like at least for me personally, because like when you live in a country, you need to, just to interact somehow with the culture, with people outside, not to stay in this, small like bubble of immigrants, depressions, all that stuff. And all bubbles like that, they usually drink too much, actually. So a lot of people start to smoke. So like to reduce the anxiety. I'm not a big fan of that, so I do a lot of sports. I think even more than I used to do before. And like horses help me a lot.
Well, thanks for sharing that. That's really important because we don't all have the same way to cope, and we always have the possibility of managing that in a positive way. So I think you could very much be proud of yourself. You mentioned the bubble or the ghetto, we can also call it. Do you find yourself over the last 6 months maybe getting involved with other people than you did in the beginning? Do you see any changes? Maybe not necessarily always dealing with 100% Russians every single day, and maybe getting more assimilated into the Georgian society?
Like I'm in a few bubbles actually, so like I know pretty much people. I used to have like pretty good network in Russia, so like a lot of people moved here, and now I have like people from this bubble, from another one bubble, like uh I left a few bubbles because they were too toxic, destructive, and like mostly self-destructive. Just it's not good for just for the mind, I think, for the psychological state. So, and I interact a lot with local people. So I have a lot of locals, for example, at this table. I speak a lot with Ukrainians because we work with Ukrainians. I speak with all the Georgian I can meet. So like all the, I don't know, like flat owners, like neighbors, some people like today I even had like about 20 minutes chat with barista. So Georgian just moved to Tbilisi, and yeah, it was pretty interesting because she told me a lot of cool stuff about her region, about her city. Now I want to go there. So like, yeah, it's fine for me to like to speak with people. So I fully understand that they do not like Russian government, that mm, they had pretty bad feeling about occupation, like 2008, about Ukraine. Actually, about some Russians that like prefer to speak Russian here everywhere when they want to ask something from locals. So I think that it's much better to ask it first in English. So if the person is fine with Russian, he or she just will answer you like that. Like let's keep to like let's go to Russian. Like let's switch to Russian, and it would be better for everyone. And like some people even say that they feel too sorry about like to tell that they took a part in the war in 2008, like when they fight for Georgia, and like I usually say that like guys, it's totally normal. So you need to like to save your country, to save your territory, save your people. So it's what you had to do, and it's actually it's a right decision, and like I admire that, and they're so surprised, like no, we thought it may offend you and all stuff, but not, like no, I'm in another country, I totally understand that. So I'm fine with talking to Georgians. However, I met like a few families that supported Putin, like Georgian families, and it blew my mind. Just how can you support a guy who who took like 20% of the land, killed a lot of people, made all this shit, and now you have this disaster with refugees like Russian, Ukrainian, Abkhazian, Ossetian. Like, how can you support that? And I asked other Georgian how they feel when they say that, like when they see that someone from their neighbors, I don't know, like co-workers support Putin. They say, what, it's betraying. So, and yeah, and actually it helped me because like it was too strange, I don't know, too crazy just to deal with that.
Life is always full of surprises. When I think about Latinos that support Donald Trump, it's the same story. But so the world is full of crazy people. But of course, I thought it was very important what you said, that the most important thing is to end the war, because that ends the killing. What role do you see, or maybe even if you feel comfortable in talking about the 20,000
Yeah.
or all of the exiled Russians right now, what role do you think you will play within Russian politics later on? You have to think that you will play some sort of role. What do you think it would be?
Like for me, I have never voted for Putin, for his, guys, for this Dem party. So like, yeah, I was all like when I was very young, I didn't care for sure because like teenagers just don't care mostly. But then I had my own business, like me and my friends founded a small company, and it was a disaster. Like every interaction with the government, with these services, it was just awful. So you felt like a victim all the time, and like they just not even respect you. They see like you as a just some box with money they can take, so someone they can kick just for fun. So, and since then, like, and we found a business when I was 19, by the way. So like since then I am truly doesn't like don't like the government and all stuff, so I've never trusted them, and like so I tried to did pretty much good stuff, like volunteering in some organizations. So the last one was AVD Info. So like I have an old trauma and I cannot run. So it's why I didn't go too much to demonstrations by myself. So when there is like some crazy police unit, you need to run from them. In other case, you would be arrested. And I cannot run like more than, I don't know, 50 meters. So it's actually, it's why actually I do a lot of horse riding, because you don't need knees for that. Yeah. So like, and I decided that the best role I can play, I can be like in the back office, helping these people to like to escape these arrests or to have less problems, just to be brave, to feel the support, that there is someone they can connect, just to it's always better when you know that there is someone caring about you and knowing about you and knowing about everything that like you're going through. So just some guidance and assistance. And like a lot of people who I spoke with during this like work, they told me that they are so like happy to have us as an organization on their back, and actually we were the reason for them to go again and again to the demonstrations. Along with that, I understood that demonstration, there was no chance that there will be a huge change because it's a North Korea model. I even went to North Korea to see how it's actually constructed. And after returning from North Korea to Russia, I understood that it's too much similar to feel safe in this country. So until the government, all this team change, there is no chance it would be better.
Regardless, I think that your experience being outside of Russia, knowing full well that there are other possibilities, being able to offer hope, because you gave us a number of examples of trying to come up with something positive. I'd like to think that's something that the country needs. Precisely that type of attitude.
Hope so, yeah, I hope so.
So from that perspective, I could imagine that you could be quite a positive force.
Probably, yeah. However, I don't feel that there is too much I can do right now, because if I go back, I'd be arrested. If when you say something like in social net somewhere, I do that. So if you open my profile, there will be a stream, a text that I'm against war is a crime. Yeah, but there are too much propaganda. And people in Russia, they use contact and other nets, social nets, where you cannot type something like that. They just will ban you, actually. So there is no direct way to these people who we actually need to convince.
Completely understand. And I'm also very cognizant that the risks that you have in raising your voice, even outside of Russia, and for that, I'm very grateful that I have your time to talk about these things. We need to figure out ways to support you. So please tell us how we can support you and the other 19,999 Russians that are in Tbilisi right now, not just only. What kind of support can we supply apart from monetary support? And we'll make sure that the information tied to where that money should be sent will be passed on to everyone who watches this video or listens to the radio show. What other support can we provide you with?
You mentioned the money, and actually it's a question not just only for us, but for any initiative in Tbilisi. So we want people to help us to help Ukrainians. So we really want to help Ukrainians, and actually we are extremely cheap. So for example, in our organization, there are more than 40 people, and we work for free. So there is no salary, no compensation. So we have only shelter, payment, food buying, for refugees, not for us for sure, paying for this bot that actually help people to fill the forms and to get some information. We need to pay for IT for sure. And with $3,000 per month, we can save a lot of people. We can continue saving these people. We do it now. And there are a lot of other organizations, not only in Tbilisi, not only in Georgia. You can support anyone, because mostly we were and are supported by Russians. And now Russians cannot donate from Russia because cards, first card, don't work. And the government also treats these people in a very bad way. So actually, if you support financially the project that supports Ukrainian, you can go, to the court and be punished. So it's why actually we need money from outside of Georgia. Georgia is a very small country. They just don't have enough money even for their refugees. So that's small. We also need people to raise a question of inviting people from Ukraine, from Russia, from Belarus. So a lot of us like it's pretty easy for us to prove that we're against war. So like it's easy to Google me or my friends, and we really like people ask me, so can you go to the like I don't know, Paris, so like a few cities like in Europe, and just tell everyone on some event about your project? And nope, because like Georgia don't allow me to get like a permission to live here, like leave permission. Then I cannot go to the embassy and to get a visa. I have money, I had my corporate career, so I can, pay for myself without any problem. So I have a lot of friends in Europe. So like I went to Europe a lot of times. My last visa like was for a few years. It's normal for me to go to Europe like 4 or 5, I don't know, more times a year. And now I cannot go there, and I cannot like ask for money for my project. And there are a lot of people who cannot see their relatives who are like in Europe, because like if you go there and like report you as a refugee and you don't have documents, you cannot go outside and then inside. And we cannot go there too. So yeah, that's a mess. And actually, everyone is welcoming IT guys. So, and I know that Russia is famous for programmers, coders, and all that stuff. But we also have a lot of mathematicians, like data analysts, project managers, and there are a lot of international companies. So, for example, I worked for Boston Consulting Group for a few years, and I did pretty much projects in different countries, including USA, by the way. You can invite even like non-IT guys, and like people from cities like Moscow and St. Petersburg, we got used to work a lot. So like usually when I speak with my friends in Europe, they say, "Are you crazy? What do you mean like by working 60 hours a week as a normal like way of living?" Because like some people they work even 80 hours a week. So it's our way of living, so like our speed of living. So like you won't quote a Russian from the corporation, they're drinking tea half of day. So it's nope. So like there may be even work scandal if you don't like open your email like before the sleep and like just not like see some notification. So there are some calls on weekends. So like Russian, like I mean corporative Russian, like these people who are like from these nice companies, they work a lot. And I have a lot of friends here who are not able just to find a job, and it's a disaster. It's much easier for me because I have international experience, like a lot of international experience, and like for me it's pretty easy to like sell myself. I had a business. I know how to do that. And there are a lot of workers, and they're surviving now, like living like 3 people in one room, for example, just because there is no way they can earn more. So instead of closing borders, like doing these restrictions, it's better to open for some maybe people who can tell you directly that they're against war, or they can prove it. Why not? So I would be fine if, like, for example, European Union would close the embassies, like touristic visas within Russia. Like maybe in just like touristic ones, not for those who want to go to, I don't know, funeral, wedding, I don't know, this stuff. So like it would be reasonable. So it pushed normal people who want to travel, like who want to live normal life outside of the country. But like don't punish those who actually run away, who are against. So we are trying to to continue our like work, to continue like all this action against propaganda and against this regime. And when our life becomes even tougher, it may stop us because we want to eat, we want to have some living space, and only then we can do something for other people, because we're human beings, we cannot work without food. Yeah, most of us don't ask for money, by the way. So like we need just ability to continue what we are doing.
Sure, of course. And I think that would, for the interview, that would be a great closing, that people understand what the repercussions are and why it's important to be open instead of closed from our perspective, and to show some support for people who really want to make a difference, because that was very clear that
Yeah,
that's what you want to do. So I
yeah,
think that's something that
and
we need to support.
yeah, for sure. And I'd like to add one more point. So actually, now a lot of people are scared to do something really cool and really huge, just because if they were caught, they like, maybe you do graffiti, I don't know, maybe you do some project, maybe you work on NGO project in a country where you don't have right to work, for example. So like full-time volunteering, it's like also a job actually, even if you're not paid. So you need to right, like a right to do that. So if you got caught, and if you just will be deported, like, so there is deportation. So if you will be sent to Russia, you know what's happened.
Yep.